Hello, welcome to the Front Movie Reviews, a podcast for people who actually like movies and TV. And welcome to episode 12, I think, of Discovering Star Trek, where we talk about this Star Trek Discovery and any other Star Trek show that's on TV right now, which there seems to be several at the moment, to CBS's chagrin. So we're here talking about The Wolf Inside. I am Scott, and with me is
Mike
and Kevin.
And Blake has a headache. It's kind of like washing your hair. Sometimes you just don't want to hang out. But he may join us in the chat room, he says. We'll see. So we're going to dive right into this thing. So before Mike has to dive right out of this podcast, as he shakes his head at me.
We're not going into
that. But so we are in episode 2 of our jaunt through the Mirror universe. And a couple things obviously have happened. First off, spoiler alert, because we're going to spoil the hell out of this thing. But we can finally put to rest completely the Is Ash Voke thing. And we also can put to rest Mir Sarek, because I think he just got turned to glass. So that's nice. Let's go ahead and talk about our first impressions for The Wolf Inside. And we'll go to Kevin first.
Let me start with something I did like. I don't know if
that's a good start.
We're looking at the art direction on the planet where the Rebel base was, but I thought that the production value for this show continues to amaze me. I guess it really shouldn't anymore. We've got enough episodes here.
The production
pretty close. What's
you
that?
Kind of cut out there, Kevin.
Sorry. The
You're
production value is good, is what I'm saying. Again, we have enough episodes. I shouldn't be surprised, but I really thought that they were going to do this kind of shoddily because they were putting it on CBS All Access, and that's clearly not what they're doing. But that was something that stood out to me. As far as the episode goes, I was really excited that they were going into the Mirror universe, only because I thought we're going to be getting away from the Klingon storyline, which I am unhappy about for many reasons. And in this episode, they got squarely back into the Klingon storyline. So yet again, I'm not a big fan of the way they're going. But as far as the Tyler thing goes, I think a lot of people saw that coming, and this is just kind of the confirmation that most people were right about it. But as far as the way they did it, it was interesting. Some of the shots they did of his flashbacks and whatnot, but ultimately, I'm just not a big fan of the entire Klingon storyline. So I've really got to include Tyler with that.
And I'm going to assume Kevin's on a CBS server, and that's why he cut out there, because CBS is still cutting out for me every time I watch a fucking episode. Oh, hey, expletive. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about CBS All Access.
Yeah. Yep.
It just comes out. Mike, what do you got?
Speaking of it, just comes out. Telling these guys I had a little bout of not feeling great pretty much immediately after the episode ended, and I jokingly correlated the two. Yeah. How do I recover from that now? Yes, Scott, I will agree with your sentiment. I had the exact same problem yet again. It was super choppy at the worst possible times, just took me right out of the story. So thanks again, CBS All Access. Let's see. As far as the episode goes, yes, good production values. I was kind of disappointed with this one. This was an episode that featured one of the biggest payoff moments that they've been working towards this entire season, and boy did it ever just was it a dud. It fell flat, in my opinion. It fell flat, and it didn't make any damn sense. So Yeah. Overall, I mean, I guess we'll get into things we liked and disliked specifically next. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I thought this episode kind of wasn't great.
I'm probably the one who liked it the most, and that's not saying that I liked it a lot, but I will agree with you, Mike, on the Vogue reveal. I think the reason why it fell flat is a couple of different reasons. One, the guy playing Ash Tyler is really not a very good actor, in my opinion. He has kind of one note. He always has the constipation look. And so there's not much difference there. And also, the Vogue thing we've known about it for so long. I mean, we've been joking that this is going to happen since episode 4 when Tyler showed up. And obviously it's not just us. Everyone on the internet kind of had the same idea that this was happening. And I give the showrunners a lot of credit. They tried to keep this quiet. I mean, they even made up a fake actor and put an IMDb article up for him, for the guy who played Vogue. And obviously now we know that's not the case. But even so, it was so telegraphed that it's not really hard hitting. And then also, the last episode told us. We knew he was Vogue in the last episode, if not the episode before that when he was talking to his melty face girlfriend. So why do we need the reveal to happen 3 different times? 3 different episodes. You've done it. You've pulled the trigger. Move on.
Yeah.
And my final complaint about the Vogue thing is it makes Burnham look even more stupid than usual. And that's saying a lot because Michael Burnham is really stupid. And so when you have a guy who, in the middle of a very important discussion with rebels who want to kill you and who you've been ordered to kill, the guy starts screaming Klingon and attacking the main guy that you're supposed to be negotiating with. And then you still don't even try to put cuffs on him when he gets back on the ship. You bring him to your quarters alone and try to talk him down when you already know this guy's going crazy. You deserve to get your neck snapped there, Michael, and I'm surprised it didn't happen. Saru saved your butt. Or Mir Saru, I guess. But in terms of that, there was quite a few things that made me happy with this episode. We've been having an argument, well, we being me and Blake's not here to defend himself, but Blake's wrong. We've been having an argument about continuity. And the fact that I have not been a fan of what they've been doing with the continuity on this show. I think if you're going to be a Star Trek show, be a damn Star Trek show, which means don't make your Discovery longer than the Sovereign class Enterprise 100 years in the future. Don't play around with the Constitution class and make it look like something else, which we still haven't gotten proof that that's the case. But I'm still thinking
ambassador class.
Yeah, and and the discussion we had last week, Blake says hi. He's on the chat room. Hi, Blake. The discussion we had is maybe this is, the Mirror Universe has had the Defiant for 100 years or 70 some odd years. They probably have augmented it. And if that's the case, I'm completely fine with it. But if we find out that that's what the Constitution looks like in the real universe, I'm going to be cranky. Mike, what do you got?
It's been all over the web. That has actually been confirmed by the writers that is the case.
That it's an augmented Constitution class?
Yes.
Then I'm fine with that. And I said that when we were having an argument with Blake and I.
Whether that was the original intent or just the cop-out to avoid nerd rage.
Hashtag...
Then why isn't there technology further along, which I grant you is more of a continuity error with Enterprise, which I actually like. But still, why isn't there technology further along? Then they've had 100-year in the future ship for 70 years or whatever it is.
Everyone in the chat room is now telling me I'm an idiot, so it's fine. And I'm replying to them. Sorry. Okay, so thanks for joining us in the chat. But no, I agree with you on the tech thing. I'm not somebody who's really upset about the aesthetics. I get that if you had big block discs that you had to put in every time you had to use the replicator, it would look kind of stupid in 2017. So I'm okay with the technology looking more advanced just because we've done that. But when you're talking about ship design, the ship design still holds. So let's keep it. But I'll stop complaining about that until we actually see the Constitution class. But what I was getting to is there was a lot of good continuity here. we saw the Andorians and the Tellarites, and they actually look like Andorians, and the Tellarite looked a little goofy, but the Tellarites, you really can't put them in a pig costume anymore. It's not going to work out too well. And believe it or not, I was thinking to myself, okay, we're going to see a Klingon with Andorians and Tellarites because they said that's who they're going to run into in the Rebels. And I was thinking these Klingons are going to stand out like a sore thumb because they're going to look like idiots with the new makeup job. But really, Vogue didn't look that bad standing next to an Andorian and Tellarite and Sarek. It kind of worked. Now, if you stick them all together, they look like terrible makeup jobs, and they can't talk through the goofy ass teeth. But they didn't look as terrible as I thought they were going to look. So I'll give it that. So I've already kind of talked a little bit about what I liked a little bit. Let's talk about what we liked about the episode, and then I'm sure you guys have a lot you didn't like. So, Mike, what are some things you liked about the episode?
I feel like we all just kind of unloaded with both barrels already. Okay, I'm going to try my best to break this down to some of the things that bothered me the most. You kind of hit the nail on the head with the whole Vogue thing. I mean, I'll give them a lot of credit because in this day and age with the internet and forums and people talking, I mean, it's somebody was gonna guess what was going on no matter what. So I mean, I think as far as masking the story going into this, masking the fact that Ash and Vogue were one and the same, I think they did as good of a job as I could have expected. But that said, they mishandled it just horribly with the whole, as you put it, the triple reveal. I mean, they just stole all of their own thunder. And to me, in this episode, there's so many of my problems here have to do with, I think, the writing. And, this was the one where they absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, they'd already revealed what was going on to the viewer, but this time they revealed it to the main character, Burnham. And so it was kind of like the final straw, and it didn't make any sense to me. I mean, I sort of, kind of, if I squint, I understand what they were going for. He ran into himself on the planet, which I turned to my wife and said was going to happen like 2 seconds into the episode. And because, like you said, they telegraphed it perfectly. And yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, it was jarring for him, I guess. And so he decided to attack himself and not Burnham. I just didn't get it. And to your point, then they all just walked away like they always do in this series. Like nothing happened. And
then the planet got turned to glass, so it doesn't really matter anyway.
Right. So there was that. I mean, that did really bother me, that it's like we waited so long and that's how they did it. One of the other things, call me a nitpick, but okay. So the Terrans' way of executing traitors is to beam them into space because apparently nobody's heard of an airlock. And I mean, I now see in the way that was all handled with Ashfaq Tyler, that it was all just, necessary in order to resolve that storyline that I assume they wrote themselves into a corner with. That was a thing that felt sloppy to me. They started off trying to make this big deal about Burnham. Sorry, I'm going into another thing about Burnham feeling emotionally crushed by being in the Terran Empire and pretending to be a bad person, which is a compelling thought to run with in real life if you don't turn around and in the same sentence as you go, I can't rest here, but I can most certainly bone somebody while my captain is below deck being tortured 24/7.
He's using his tether, okay?
I mean,
as soon as he started talking about tether, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So
he's taking it down a little too literally. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing I can even really say with all the other storylines going on. I mean, that right there was such a slap in the face. Like, we're trying to be smart and artsy and just failing at it so hard. So there you go, guys.
That's what you liked, huh?
No, that is not what I like. Wait, did I do the wrong thing?
You did the
I
right
was
thing.
so
That's
eager
fine.
to jump in.
That's all right.
It's fine. Then you do the right thing next time. It'll be fine. Real quick, one thing I definitely want to agree with you on is when you're the writer's writing 101, when you're writing a mystery, do not let the reader get ahead of the narrative or ahead of the characters. And they did that. Again, this was filmed almost entirely before it aired, which is why the CBS leaking it out episode by episode is freaking stupid, and why I love the Netflix model. But so the writers have no ability to catch up with fandom once fandom realized in episode 3 that, hey, Voke is Ashley. But you still have to have a coherent narrative where you don't tell the readers, or the viewers in this case, what's happening on page 10 when we're not going to actually have it in the story until page 100. That drives me nuts too. I agree. Mm-hmm. Kevin, what did you like?
Yes. I was looking forward to some character development with Saru and Tilly. And we didn't really get a lot on Saru, but we got a little on Tilly, and it's unfortunate that things didn't seem to work out. But who's to know? Maybe there was enough repair done that Anthony Rapp's character Stamets will be back with us in an episode or two. I definitely think the series is better when they have Anthony Rapp more front and center than just sitting in a booth comatose or whatever else you want to say.
His acting skills were not used in this episode, unless, hey, Anthony, we want you to twitch. Okay. I was on Broadway for many years. You want me to twitch?
But yeah, I don't like the direction they're going, and I haven't been a huge fan of this series. So there's, and I try, if I try to find anything else nice to say other than the production value and the really cool art direction they did on the planet and the Tilly storyline, it's going to seem fake. So let's just move on from me.
See, I think this is what we need to do: is we need to follow what I started inadvertently and just get the bad out of the way. We'll skip Kevin in the next part, and we'll end on a high note.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say what I liked. I get what you're saying, Mike, but I've got it all in my head already, so I'm just gonna roll with it.
This episode's a mess. All right.
Yeah, John in the chat's like, this episode, this was far from perfect episode, but it wasn't the worst. And I replied back, well, believe it or not, this is one of my favorites of the series so far. And John's like, yeah, 2 against 1. I'm like, yeah, that's normal. So, as I already mentioned, I feel that this is the second episode of a reboot of this series. And what I mean by that, it seems to me that the writer's room, somewhere right after the mid-season break, when they were writing it, so they didn't know it was going to be a mid-season break. And in fact, this was supposed to be episode 3 coming back after the winter break, but they moved it to episode 2 when they changed where the break was going to be. But it seems to me that they've really started to go full bore on the fact that they realized halfway through the season that this season, these characters were really just kind of meandering around, and there wasn't much of a story aside from talking about mushrooms and warp drives. So in 2 episodes, we've gotten references to Enterprise, we've gotten references to TOS, we've gotten the Andorians and the Tellarites finally, which should be much more prevalent in the Federation since they're the founding members, and obviously with the Vulcans as well. And we've gotten some good things there in terms of the story kind of taking a shift. Now, as I said last episode, and I stand behind this, I do not want to be stuck in the Mirror Universe for the rest of the end of the season. Now, I think that's what's going to happen, but I don't want that to happen. The Mirror Universe is good in little bits, but as soon as you're there for forever, it gets tiring. Even with Enterprise, when they went to the Mirror Universe, the 2-episode thing, it really could have been a 1 episode and been fine. A couple other things I liked about the episode is I enjoy the Discovery when Michael and Lorca are not on the Discovery. It seems like it's a well-run ship when Lorca and Burnham are not there, or Tyler for that matter. Saru's doing fine, even though he should still be in the brig for what he did 3 episodes ago. I'm not going to let that one go. And as Kevin already mentioned, I'm liking the Tilly storyline. I think the idea of her kind of breaking out of her shell was done a lot better in the last episode, but we're still dealing with it here. And I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with Stamets. We had talked about the fact that he had saw himself in the reflection 5-6 episodes ago. And the idea that we came up with, at least a couple of us, was this could be an invasion type thing. And now that we have bad Stamets and good Stamets on the Spore world, whatever the hell that is, obviously Stamets, bad Stamets, is working towards some kind of plan to, I don't know what he's going to do, but I like the idea that Anthony Rapp's going to have something to do, so he won't be just twitching next episode. Let's see what the chat room's saying. Blake is agreeing with me. Hey, it does feel like a bit of a mid-season course change. Hey. And John says they spend too much money on sets and costumes and just hang out in they spend too much money on sets and costumes to just hang out in the Mirror Universe for 2 episodes.
Yeah,
point.
You're right. You're right, and that's why they're probably gonna be there for the rest of the time. We also called it, and it's not like it wasn't telegraphed as well, but Georgiou being the Emperor is kind of fun. And it sorry, Mike, you were the only one who didn't believe
you got me.
But it also, I like again that they're starting to play with continuity and doing that correctly. And the fact that Georgiou could obviously be a descendant of Soto makes sense. Although I still wanted 100-year-old Linda Park. I'll take this too. So those are the big points. Oh, another thing with the continuity is I was sitting there thinking to myself, this is going to be another problem because we know the Terran Empire is doing well and fine 10 years from now. So what the hell are they going to do helping these rebels? And then obviously the rebels get wiped out. And I guess Spock decides to wear a goatee and, in memorial of his father. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I do
Eric, so.
I do like the fact that they wiped that clean. And the other reason why I like that is because I thought for sure what the turn was going to be was our Ash is going to be left in the Mirror Universe and their Voke's going to come with us. Luckily, I don't think that's going to happen now since he's now been melted. So that's fine by me. We think he's been melted. I'm assuming he's been melted. Just assuming. Another thing, just real quick, and then I will be done, is we were talking about the tech thing again. And Blake mentioned that the reason why the Mirror Universe tech isn't ahead of everyone else is because, and this is not canon yet because it was only in a novel, but Soto kept the Defiant to herself. When she became Emperor, she didn't want anyone else having technology aside from her, so she kept it to herself. And I think the preview for the next episode showed a very advanced-looking ship that's not the Defiant at all. It looks like an advanced Klingon-inspired thing. I don't know. So I can see maybe that there is more advanced tech. It's just being held by the Emperor. Okay, that's all I got for positives for right now. So let's go into negatives. Mike already kind of did it, but feel free to chime in more, Mike. But Kevin, what else you got that you want to complain about?
The main thing I want to complain about is Sarek being a part of the Resistance. It almost kind of destroys the really great scene at the end of Mirror Mirror where good universe Kirk talks Mirror Universe Spock into this isn't logical, do something about this. And then later on in DS9, they took that and ran with that, which I really liked that storyline. And I think this one, having Sarek and already a member of that, yeah, I'm sure you can come up with arguments why it doesn't completely destroy that, but I don't like it. It doesn't make sense to me. And I guess I'm the guy looking for continuity errors, and I don't really know why I'm doing that because I told myself I wouldn't. But when
That's my job.
you make my comic book guy come out, it's not a good thing. Mike, what do you have?
Yeah, I can probably throw a few more logs on that fire. The Sarek thing did bug me, but also for a different reason, and that was the I don't know. It's just lazy writing. It's he was there so he could do the mind meld and confirm that Burnham was okay. Never mind that he saw probably so much confusing shit that it should have made his head explode. but he just turned and gave Vok the thumbs up and told him it was all right. It felt lazy and stupid, and obviously he didn't mind meld with Tyler for some reason. Because why would you?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why didn't you scan the other dude? I mean,
and like I said, there's so much weird, confusing stuff that you would have thought, like, okay, maybe he could sense that her overall intentions were pure, but I'm still like, wouldn't you tell your boss? I guess that's what nobody in this series does, though.
No one communicates well, yes.
Oh, by the way, the chief medical officer's dead, and we don't know how come. Could be the guy you're with. Meh.
Well, they assume. Okay. Well, they assume.
Look, isn't this series a mess? Isn't it truly just a mess?
I will push back on the last piece though, because they assume Stamets killed him. So why would you tell them that Ashley potentially could have done it? Because
you're correct, they did, and I understood the reasoning as far as like don't distract her from her mission, but that's the one thing in all of this that made sense to me. So the next thing, and feel free to correct me on this one, but so at the end, what we saw was Tyler returning to Vogue mode. Oh, by the way, Klingons focus a little bit more on anesthesiology than cloaking devices for all of his surgical flashback screaming scenes. You're with me now. I see it. So he attacks Burnham. Mirror through, saves her, fine, whatever. It seemed like a relatively short path to where they marched him right down to the transporter room and beamed him into space. Now, obviously, I can only assume that either the Discovery was watching from a distance or somehow Burnham had gotten a communication out to tell him what was happening. I don't know. But then in the very end, they beam Tyler back aboard. Discovery knows what's going on with him at this point. How did they get the intel on the Defiant?
She's been collecting it. She said that she's been collecting it and she has it. She just can't release it because they'll notice that she sent it.
Okay. I missed that because of one of the goddamn stutters, then I'm pretty sure.
The one where it really stuttered for me was during the Vogue fight. The Vogue versus Vogue. It was just that
was bad, and for me, it actually did stutter a lot during that interaction between Burnham and Tilly, and then Burnham and Saru in the beginning, which is exactly where that important plot detail came in. So at the end of the story, I'm like, okay, somehow they got Tyler out of space in time to save him, and also things are okay and problem solved. I don't know. I was really baffled by that. So.
Mike, there are comments in the chat that you look like you're about ready to get sick over this episode, so I'm telling them that you actually are sick, so to defend you a little bit.
Yeah, it's true.
Kevin, you had something else you wanted to say about it, the episode or the series being a mess.
Yeah, I just it doesn't seem like the writers have a clear path while staying in the Star Trek universe. So many things to say. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but it does not seem to me like these writers have a clear path forward, and they're making stuff up as they go.
Well, and I think part of that comes from the fact that when you have a complete writer's room toss-up right before the show goes to air, this stuff's going to happen. And this isn't the first time that we've had a Star Trek show kind of sputter the first year or two and turn out good. My complaint is I think there are some characters in this show, and I'll get to the point on this episode here in a second, but my complaint is there's characters on the show that I just don't see any way to get behind, and that's a problem. When Ash and Burnham are on the alien planet and they're starting to get, bazookaed by the rebels, I'm thinking, if you make a good direct hit, it will make this show 100% better. Just take them out. Because all of my complaints about this episode truly are with Burnham. every single one of my complaints I'm about ready to list off stem from Burnham. The fact that the actress Sonequa Martin Green, who I always thought was a pretty terrible actress on Walking Dead, but then I was like, maybe it's just The Walking Dead. Maybe she wasn't given a very good character to play with. Maybe she'll do better here. The girl looks like she has dead eyes all the time. So when she's supposed to have dead eyes in this episode, like she's supposed to have character conflict that's like eating away her soul, she looks exactly like she does in every other episode because the actress cannot emote. So it's a problem. Burnham is just an idiot. I already mentioned how the fact that she should have known, she probably should have locked Vogue/Tyler up as soon as he started spewing Klingon and waving a bat lift around, but she decided to take him into her quarters by himself, and herself. But also, one of the things I liked, and actually I forgot to mention this in one of the things I liked, but it ties in here, is when Ashley gets beamed overboard Discovery. And John actually mentioned he doesn't know how Discovery knew to beam him up. I'm assuming in between the time where she told him to go to the transporter room, she ran over to her quarters and made a message to Discovery. I'm guessing.
What stinks is that you have to assume that.
You do. I mean, yeah, they would have been helpful to do something to say, hey, I'm going to send you a package or something. Obviously, she put the stuff on him when she punched him, but when he goes back over to Discovery, he says she should have killed me when she had the chance. Saru says, even though we're in the mirror universe, we're still Starfleet. We don't do that. I love that. And I love the fact that Saru said that. The problem is Burnham didn't do that through the entire episode. We now know at the end of the episode, the Discovery could have been picking these people out of space. Why is she not having Discovery do the exact same thing to every one of those people? At least we saw 3 of them get jettisoned. Mm-hmm. If you're Starfleet, if your job is to protect life above all else, which is the point of Starfleet, why are you not protecting those people that you're shooting out airlocks? Obviously, they're on your side more so than they're going to be on the Terra and Empire side, so protect them. It's just, you can probably wipe it away and say, well, the Discovery didn't want to give itself away until it was most important, all that stuff. But if you're going to do the whole we're Starfleet and this is what we stand for, which is what Star Trek is, I appreciate that. But do it through the whole freaking episode. And if it's the fact that Burnham is just an idiot, get rid of Burnham. Move on to somebody else. Give me Captain whatever. I'll be fine with it. But I just cannot get behind Burnham. I can't do it. And it's annoying.
Yeah, because I did actually not say a single positive thing about this episode so far, and I should have, because that was one thing I wanted to say is the whole "We Are Starfleet" thing. I did like that they brought that into the episode. The part where it felt the most poignant to me was Burnham coming up with the plan, or the, I don't know if it was a plan so much as it was having a discussion with Lorca about going down to the planet and meeting the rebel leaders, figuring out how a group of other races in the mirror universe came together and bonded with the Klingons. I actually thought that was a very smart thing to have brought up, and I thought again it was handled pretty clumsily.
The speech was a little goofy, but I agree with you there, and it's foreshadowing because when we get to DS9, 100 some odd years in the future, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, everyone banded against the Terran Empire. Now the Terran Empire is a bunch of slaves. So it's going to go that way. We know in the timeline. So I like that too. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and that was really the piece I wanted to say is I think, you're right. You could reason away the fact that they weren't saving all the other people that were being beamed into space in a number of different ways. But they were playing that "We Are Starfleet" card very heavily. And I thought it made really good sense in one spot and felt kind of heavy-handed and like a throwaway in others. I kind of had the same problem with the Star Wars movie, but I don't want to get way off topic on this. But it was the simple fact that Discovery was close enough behind that ship to beam somebody aboard that was out in space. Does nobody in the universe check their sensors or their radar or look out their window?
Well, I think we've found that the mirror universe's sensors are really crappy because they couldn't even see where the torpedoes were coming from at the end of the episode.
Right. Well, and that
I'm assuming it's a cloaking device, but still.
Earlier in the season, a couple of times as well, where I'm just like, really? Like, you have to know specifically something's out there with all your advanced technology? Like, yeah, another nitpick.
Well, another thing I liked that Creeper actually brought up, and Creeper finally joined us. Way to be late, Creeper. Is he pointed out, the music cues when they pulled out of the Shinzu's window was incredible. Also really liked this ship CGI. The one thing I was going to say is the director or whomever decided to do this, I love the fact that we get a sense of where people are in this episode. You had the zoom in at the beginning to where we now know that sickbay is out on the outer pylon right there, because we saw that when they zoomed in the window. They zoom into the bridge a couple times on the Shinzu. I'm liking how they kind of give us an idea of where on the ship we are. I wish they would do that more often. You obviously couldn't do that in the time of models, and I still defend the fact that I wish we still had models on these shows. But when you have the CGI, you can afford it and do it right. I'm liking the way they're using the CGI more in that. Just if they can make the Klingon ships look like Klingon ships, I'd be happier. But that's for another day.
Flying peacocks.
Anything else you guys want to bust on this episode with?
I'm good. I've said enough.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap up the discussion on this episode with any kind of final thoughts and then a score. And then we're going to talk about predictions. And there's a couple of things that's already been talked about in the chat room that I'll get to here, dealing with Lorca, and then also obviously what's going to happen here in the next few episodes with the Mirror Universe. But for those of you who just joined us, we rate these episodes on a scale of 1 to 10, and they are compared to other episodes in the Star Trek franchise. So a 5 score would be an average Star Trek episode. A 10 would be one of the best of all time, including all of the series. And a 1 would be threshold. So let's go ahead and start with Kevin. Final thoughts, if you have any, and then give us a score for The Wolf Inside.
The final thought that I have is I like that they're working Michelle Yeoh back into the series, at least temporarily. So hopefully that will continue for a little while, because I think the show is better when they have her on. And as far as a score, I'm going to go 3.
So a below average Star Trek episode.
Yes.
Cool. Mike?
Yep, I think a 3 is pretty fitting as well. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I still found it entertaining. I didn't get up and walk away. It didn't actually make me physically ill, although... yeah, I mean, the writing felt clumsy. It really hurt the most that they wasted a couple of payoff moments on this particular episode and did it in not a great way. It's one of those things where if they had saved the Vogue Tyler reveal for later and spent that time more wisely, I think it would have been better overall. But instead, they just lumped a big piece of disappointment into the middle of it. Yeah, so there you go.
So I'm watching the chat room, and it's almost like, the end of every single Frankenstein movie from the 1930s, where all of the towns are bringing the torches and the pitchforks ready to take out the monster. You guys are getting some love, let me tell you. So,
opinions are opinions. All of this is made up, and the points don't matter. Just like whose line is it anyway?
Truth. So from first off, Blake, who is in the chat room because he was, washing his hair, as I mentioned, he gives the episode a 7. And from
I don't get it either, but
well, you get ready. So I gave last week's episode a 7, and I do believe that this is an above average Star Trek episode. Couple reasons, obviously, as I mentioned, I like the production value. I like the idea of where they're going with the Mirror Universe. I like the fact that they're playing with continuity finally, and they're making this into a prequel series that somewhat makes sense. I don't feel that it was as strong as last week's episode, so I'm going to give it a 6. I think it's an above average Star Trek episode, and I hope that this will be one of those series of episodes, much like a lot of Enterprise Season 4, where you can go back and just watch the Mirror Universe arc of Discovery when it's all said and done. I think the show has turned a corner. I think they're doing better. I just wish they would shoot Burnham out of an airlock, and then I would be much happier. Most of the chat room saying 7. In fact, everyone in the chat room has said 7. so far.
I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm just curious. I kind of feel like, well, I could say this isn't true, just based on what I've heard from Kevin. But I was going to say, for me, I feel like I'm judging this series more as a standalone thing and less as a piece of continuity.
Yeah.
And that's just me personally. I could overlook a lot of silly continuity stuff in order to be entertained. And what's funny is I feel like that's working against me in some of these episodes where it's working for you, right?
Yeah. Because I'm the continuity guy. I mean, Mike, let's be honest. You and I and a few others in high school would sit around naming off classes of starships just for fun. Yeah. So totally. we're nerds, and we understand the history
full
pretty
of
well.
My own little saucer section and nacelle designs.
Yes, and the one time you busted a window out, getting a little excited about something, it was
that was something entirely different.
Yeah, but
cocaine's a hell of a drug.
It was Moline. It would have been meth. But so with me on the continuity, if you're, I stand behind what I've said on our side chats when we do this as well too. When you decided to name it Star Trek, it's Star Trek. Every single show has had continuity errors. I fully understand that, but for the most part, the TV shows have followed a timeline and have stuck with the timeline for as much as possible. And up until about 2 episodes ago, I felt this show was not doing that. I felt there's no reason why a spore drive that is that powerful is going to be ignored 10 years from now, let alone 70 or 80 years from now. And Blake and I have had this conversation. The simple fix for that would have been in the writer's room, instead of calling it a spore drive, call it transwarp. Because we know the experiment with transwarp again in the future several times. Mm-hmm. Just call it transwarp and call it a day. Every single piece, aside from the mushroom thing, you can still use. Every little bit of it. And that just comes from the writer's room not understanding the franchise that they took over. And part of that, I think, maybe... And I was actually thinking about this, too. And I've defended Brian Fuller a lot. And I have always said on here that I wish we could have had Brian Fuller continue on in his show lead capacity because he left after the pilot was written. So everything after the pilot, which actually wasn't even supposed to be the pilot, it was like episode 2 or 3 when they were putting it all together, is not his. I'm almost starting to think that maybe my gripe is with Brian Fuller. I don't know that for a fact. I don't have any evidence to point to that. But it almost seems like the start of this series for me was the problem. And now they're starting to figure out where they're going. Now, this could all fall apart very quickly by the end of the season, but I think they're moving in the right direction for me. And I think part of that is, as we already just discussed, is the continuity and the fact that they're starting to realize that they're a prequel. And as much as I hate prequels and I think they're worthless, if you're going to have a prequel, be a freaking prequel. Yeah. I don't know. Now I'm off my soapbox.
I've been trying very hard not to nitpick continuity, and then if I do, I check it with one of you guys because my life's gotten a lot busier the last year, so I'm
so you go to us who can afford the time.
Well, no, I don't mean that. What I mean is I don't look back at as many episodes, and I've been looking at a lot of other sci-fi lately, so I don't have certain things in my memory bank that I used to. And I know that I can just throw it out there and check it with you guys because one of you is going to know.
Sad but true.
So that I'm not saying something. So that I'm not saying something that's stupid for one, and two that isn't true. But at the same time, I'm just as far as it fitting in the Star Trek universe, I'm having a really hard time with it. And maybe that's my whole problem with the series.
Well, and I remain optimistic because I still say, and this is the thing we said with the first episodes we reviewed here, last fall, this is still the best looking Star Trek show in the first season that we've had. And if only they could get the writing up to the way it looks, we could have an amazing show. And the writers and the showrunners have said season 2 will be getting more towards what Star Trek is. So I think once we get through this storyline and this war arc, and we probably jettison Lorca for one reason or another, and we'll get to that in a moment, I hope to God we don't get Captain Burnham. But either way, if they start doing more in the line of exploring space and doing that type of thing, we'll probably have a better series on our hands. And don't get me wrong, if somebody's going to nail me for saying, well, you're just against serialization, my two favorite sci-fi shows of all time is Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5. I have no problem with serialization. I just, as I think Mike pointed out, I want you to have a plan going forward so your serialization makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So let's go into. Oh, and by the way, Kevin, Blake is surprised that you're surprised that you two disagree. It happens a lot. I do want to point out though,
he and I are usually pretty on the same page with stuff. But I super hated the first two Abrams movies. Super hated them to a point where I was like I was literally turning into the comic book guy. I might as well just started living in my parents' basement at that point. I mean, it was getting pretty silly on my part, but I really don't like them.
You say silly. You saw the knockdown drag out that Blake and I had. None of you people interjected, by the way. You just let it go, where we were arguing over the Discovery shouldn't be 750 meters because the Constitution class from TOS was 120 meters. I mean, we were. This is the sad state of life that I am in.
Let me say two things about that. One, Scott, I think I agreed with you a lot more than I did Blake.
Well, thanks for backing me up in the chat. I appreciate it.
I know, but the other part of it is I don't know how much I was really
you just didn't care.
Bothered by that particular thing.
There you go.
Because to me, it's pretty clear that this ship is smaller. It's just longer.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's not about the length; it's about the size, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, a creeper. I was just throwing a number out there. You're right. The Constitution class is 300 meters, actually. Yeah. This is what happens when I talk ship specs. I get yelled at. Real quick, Kevin, I will completely agree with you. Into Darkness is trash. It is, if not the worst Star Trek film of all time, it is one of the worst sci-fi films of all time.
Oh no, 5's still the worst. But okay.
Five had McCoy, Spock, and Kirk eating marshmallows. But I like 2009, and I think Star Trek Beyond was Spock called them marshmallows. I'm attempting to roast a marshmallow. But 2009 and Beyond, I think Beyond was the best one of the three. I really like
Beyond. Was pretty good.
Yeah, but okay. So let's talk predictions. And Blake says Into Darkness sucks. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And Blake calls me a size queen. Okay, great. Thank you, Blake, for that. I appreciate that. I'm just going to leave that one alone.
Yeah, leave that one alone.
Okay, so let's talk predictions here. So we've gotten a couple of different things. Obviously, at the very last minute, Emperor Georgiou shows up. One thing the chat room pointed out that I did not catch, probably because it stuttered on CBS All Access, but I just pulled it up, and it definitely happens. At the last scene where Georgiou yells at Burnham saying, "You're not going to bow before your emperor," and Burnham bows, they go to a very tight shot of Lorca, and he gets a little bit of a grin on his face, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so Blake is immediately saying that it means Lorca's from the Mirror Universe. I'll talk about how I feel about that in a minute, but let's talk about predictions from you guys. Mike, go ahead, and where do you think this is going?
Somebody backed me up on that because I thought I imagined it.
No, I didn't catch it, but I just pulled it up on my screen. In fact, here, hold on. I can do screen share. Hold on. Sorry.
What?
I can do screen share.
Oh, yeah.
We found that out. Go ahead. You keep talking. I'll pull it up.
Okay. At this point, here's one thing I can say, and I don't know if it's good or bad yet, is I almost feel like I just want to stop giving predictions because I'm apparently bad at it.
I know I'm bad at it, so...
Well, and they are keeping me guessing for the most part. You know, I did even start to doubt the whole Ash Fock thing until 3 episodes ago when they started laying it out in your face. And I really don't know what's going on with Lorca anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of convinced he's not actually from the mirror universe, but I'm not entirely convinced he's not going to decide he wants to hang out there. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Kevin, what about you?
Um, I I hope they don't move into a direction where they take Jason Isaacs off the show.
I agree. I like him.
Because I really like the actor. Now, having it be an interesting character is something I think they're going to have to work on a little bit more. I don't have a problem with having a show that focuses on a different character other than the captain, and having a show that doesn't have a semi-perfect captain, but I do want the character to be interesting, and I haven't felt interested in the character for a little while now, so I hope they get back to something where Jason Isaacs is a little bit more important.
Oh, that's weird. Hold on.
So, what's funny for me is I actually thought he was a lot more interesting early on. I liked a lot of the storylines that they were driving at with him having, kind of the the scarred, battle worn kind of hardened background. And the part where they actually started to lose me with him was when they started to show his, for lack of a better term, more sciencey side, and his awareness of the possibility of jumping to alternate realities and stuff. That part actually felt out of place for me, as far as everything we knew about Lorca up till that point. And then I can honestly say that after that, I feel like they didn't shine the light on him very much at all. And to your point, I lost interest to a large degree.
That's kind of what I was getting at too. They haven't done anything with him for a while now, other than make it clear that he's somehow behind them going to this universe, or at least his override may have been a mistake. Who knows what that all was about, but
we don't know yet, and I hope we find out and it wasn't a throwaway.
Yeah.
There was something I was going to throw out as far as a positive is we debated whether or not that scene several episodes, back in the season where Stamets' reflection has a life of its own. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We debated whether that was a throwaway or not, and I honestly feel like after this episode and that very brief scene where Anthony Rapp got to not lay on a table, that was not a throwaway. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, no, I definitely, before our Stamets knew what was going on, Mir Stamets was already playing a long game.
Yes, and I was glad to see that that's the case and that it wasn't just, abandoned artistic direction.
Yeah, because for even when they show up in the Spore world or whatever, he says, "I'm glad you finally got here," or whatever he says. So obviously, he was waiting a while for him to figure it out. And believe it or not, CBS All Access started buffering on me, so it took me a while to get this. But here's the Lorca thing. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Sweet. So he's got he gets a little bit more
smugly,
but yeah. So here's my thought on Lorca. I don't think he's Mirror Universe. I'm not going to go down that road yet. I mean, I may be wrong. Oh, hey, Mick just showed up and said, "God, this episode sucked." Thanks for joining, Mick.
Mick.
But my thing is, Lorca is always out for Lorca, and this is why I agree with you, Kevin. I like Jason Isaacs as an art actor. I think he would have made a very good Star Trek captain. The problem is he was set up as the villain to start with. So he's going to have to either get wiped off the board before the end of the season, or at least taken out of command and be a continuing villain throughout the show. Mm-hmm. But he cannot continue to be the captain of the ship through the entire run of the show, or the show is just going to be about the Discovery bouncing off its own walls because it's being run by a villain. And I think the character has been shown to be somebody who just does not care about anything but himself and wanting to make sure that he gets what he needs and is protected. That's why he killed all of his own crew of his last ship. That's why he told Burnham this episode just to nuke the planet and move on, because you can't afford not to. Even though you're going to kill an entire rebel alliance or whatever, It doesn't matter. It's the same reason why he definitely sent them into the mirror universe. He didn't know it was the mirror universe, but he knew he could get to another dimension where he wasn't going to be wanted at Starfleet for trying to kill his girlfriend / admiral. So I think that the smirk on his face at the end of this episode is him realizing he has found an in, that he's not going to have to sit in the agony booth for the rest of the show, that now he is seeing who actually is in charge, and he is seeing that Burnham is going to fall apart in front of Georgiou for many reasons. Her dead mentor is back. The person she got killed is back. So she is, and we see that too at the end of the episode where she's kind of staring off with, again, the Sonequa dead eyes that she has every time she acts. So I think Lorca sees an end here where he's going to be able to take control of the situation again, which for the past 2 episodes, not only has he not been in control of this situation, he has been in complete and total agony. So he's ready to get out of that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they play that angle of him for the first time. I mean, I don't necessarily know that I still think he's a villain in this point. But they are setting it up to a point where he may, in the next episode, directly square off with Burnham for the first time.
And I hope he wins, and I hope he kills her. God, I can't stand that character. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that'll be cool. So we'll see.
Blake's prediction, and actually it's a good one. I don't think he actually killed his original crew. I think he died with that crew, and the Lorca we have now is Mirror Lorca, which is exactly what happened with the other folks. We have our timeline, Burnham and Lorca, because the other 2 are dead, so it could happen. Cynthia says, why would he be happy in the mirror universe? He is wanted for trying to kill the Emperor. Well, yes, but now he knows who the Emperor is, so he can maybe kill her and actually carry it out. I don't know. I'm not even
Does
going to
anyone
repeat
find it
that,
a little bit ridiculous that Georgiou is the Emperor? I mean, come on.
I saw it coming a mile away because we knew, for one, that, as you said, Michelle Yeoh is an excellent actor, and you do not get her for 2 episodes and kill her and move on. Along with that, on the meta side of things, we know she was at the filming of the finale because she's in the cast photo. So she was going to be back at least for the finale. So I knew she was coming back. But on the side of...
I assume she'd be a blue ghost, though.
And she strikes trees with lightning?
Yeah.
I've discussed Last Jedi for 3 hours on podcast now. I'm good. By the way, spoilers, I liked it. What was I saying? But in timeline, it actually, I'm okay with it for several reasons. One, again, we know that Emperor Soto was in charge for quite some time. She got the Defiant, she murdered her captain, and she became the Emperor through the Defiant. So I can easily see Georgiou as a descendant of Hoshi Sato. And that just means that in our prime timeline, Georgiou is a descendant of our Hoshi Sato. So, I mean, that makes sense for me. I think I was thinking the same thing, and you guys have complained about it too, with like, oh, obviously the Klingon leader is going to be Vogue, obviously. Star Trek has always done that with the Mirror Universe. The leader of the Klingon Cardassian alliance at DS9 is Kira Nerys. Okay, they've always done this to where the idea is that the counterparts of our people are always there in a place of power, and usually at the very same place we would have found them anyway in our timeline. So if you're going to complain about that, you're going to complain about that for every single Mirror Universe Star Trek has thrown at us. That's
all right,
just... And that was my argument to myself, because I was bitching in my head about the same thing. And I was like, then I'm going to have to complain about every Mirror Universe episode ever, because that's how they do it. Stress-Free K, hi, says Georgiou was wasted, plus no matter what universe Georgiou is in, she's still a badass. Well, okay. As long as they don't kill her again, she's a badass. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I'm good.
I don't know where we're at. I love how this was going to be a short episode. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's fine. He's like, just wrap it up. Well, okay. You can find us at thefrontrowmoviereviews.com. You can email us at thefrontrowmoviereviews@gmail.com. If you're in our chat room right now, which this has been the liveliest chat room we've had, so thank you so much. Make sure you are subscribing and liking this video, and then also hit that notify button so you get notified when we go live again. We go live around 9:30 for every one of these on Sundays, but we also do live episodes for a lot of our other shows, like my Twilight Zone retrospective, Craig's Disney movie show, and so forth and so on. We have quite a few that you can take a look at by going to our website, but also hitting that notify button. And if you're listening to the podcast version, please, again, be sure to subscribe and get us a rating and a like on your podcast app of choice so more people can find us that way too. We'll be back next week when Emperor Joju is a badass, I'm assuming, as Stress-Free points out to us. And maybe Blake will be able to join us instead of just sniping us from the chat room. He hasn't sniped me yet. I'm waiting for... There's a 7-second delay, so sooner or later Blake will chime in. Until then, I'm Scott, and with me has been...
Bitter old Mike.
And Kevin.
Not bitter old Kevin, just bitter old Mike.
Just Kevin.
Well, we will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Oh, Blake says he can't wait for next week. See, there's that 7-second delay. Hi, Blake. Okay. Until next time, we will see you all on the couch. Have a nice night.